guys, welcome to another episode of Next Step Espresso, your daily shot of fitness. I am your host as always, Johnny Landals from Next Step Nutrition, bringing you the podcast that helps you overcome the industry confusion and get results for good. Today we're on episode 342, and if you follow me personally on Instagram or if you follow the business page, if you don't do either, I'm quite surprised that you found the podcast, but if you don't, go and do so at Johnny Landals or at Next Step Nutrition Limited. You'll have noticed that I had a bit of a rant against a certain Dr. Stephen Gundry. Now, if you haven't seen this, he is the author of The Plant Paradox and has a new book coming out called The Fruit Paradox, and so has this whole paradigm over plants and fruit being unhealthy for us and bad for us. Now, his argument with the fruit paradox is this idea of fructose being the major concern. Now, what we need to remember, and I'm going to go through fructose in a fair bit of detail for you scientific nerds, but I'm going to keep it simple, is that fruit isn't just fructose, right? Fruit is a combination of fructose, sucrose, and glucose. So it's a combination of all three of the monosaccharides, so one single molecule of a sugar, which means that they're digested very differently to just pure fructose. They are also in presence of water and fiber and loads of vitamins and minerals. So as a food item, are perfectly healthy and very, very good for us. Now, why is fructose of concern? So I've got a couple of links for you guys. One is the like a fructose review by George Bray in 2007. But then we've got another review by Salwa Rizkala in 2010, who then reviews all of the evidence and kind of has a neat little abstract. So the Bray article is decent because it talks about the fructose being concerning, but then goes into some of the evidence with school children that, funnily enough, Rizkala then kind of discredits. So I'm going to talk to you about the concerns of fructose first, and then the kind of review that we've got from Rizkala, and I'll post these both in the show notes. So first, fructose, it's sweeter than glucose and sucrose, and obviously in fruit, it's part of foods that are nutritionally very rich, but it's the main ingredient in soft drinks and sweets that provide a very, very sweet taste, that also provide calories without any other kind of nutrients, right? You've not really got much benefit in some Haribo or some Coca-Cola apart from the sugar in it. So if you're an athlete and you are exercising at high intensities, you might need some fast sugar, but really there's not really any other nutrition there. So high fructose corn syrup has risen in parallel with this obesity epidemic we find ourselves in, and that's just because of the amount of processed food we have now. So the survey of food intake from individuals from 94 to 96 showed that the average person had a daily added sugar intake of 79 grams, which was equivalent to 316 calories, half of which was fructose. And then the people who were ranked in the top third of fructose consumers ingested 137 grams of added sugars, and those in the top 10% was 178 grams. So that was back in 94 to 96. So it shows that over time we are basically getting more and more fructose in, and most fructose in the Western diet comes from high fructose corn syrup or sugar that found in these types of foods as opposed to from fruit. So the reason why it could potentially be an issue is that fructose is metabolized slightly differently. So there's no need for it biologically, and when ingested by itself, it's poorly absorbed and mostly cleared by the liver, which is a bit of an issue. It's not metabolized, it is metabolized in the liver, but it doesn't really stimulate insulin or any kind of storage. It bypasses that whole step, which therefore favors lipogenesis, which is this idea of creating and storing body fat lipids, right? The only issue we get to this part now is that body fat can't be stored if you are not in a caloric surplus. So although there might be some evidence to propose that fructose can do this, that is in its purest form, for one, and usually in very, very high doses and with very, very high calorie intakes. So if we move from Bray's review to this overall review by Rizkallah, we've got basically no fully relevant data to present and account for a direct link between fructose intake and health marker risks such as obesity, triglyceride accumulation, and insulin resistance, which means that although there have been some studies with dietary fructose and high fructose corn syrup showing these things, they have been cross-sectional or based on inaccurate surveillance, especially in children and teenagers, which haven't therefore established direct causal links. So it's that whole kind of thing of like, yeah, there's a relevant factor there, but that doesn't mean it's caused the issue, right? Then we have evidence of short/acute satiating power, so keeping you full, of fructose consumption compared to that of normal sugars such as sucrose. It's a bit inconclusive. And then when we think about these types of sugars in comparison, there's, no real differences between the three. Negative conclusions have been drawn from studies in rodents and humans, but that's been with really, really high fructose amounts and really, really high fructose corn syrup amounts. So the issue remains that if you're drinking loads of fizzy drink that's full sugar, if you're eating loads of sweets and you're overeating your calories, then potentially you have an issue. But if you are consuming your fructose just from having fruit, then you wouldn't be of an issue. And again, if you're controlling your overall calorie intake and you're having, say, some sweets here or there, and it's part of a much wider, balanced, nutrient-dense diet, then you're not going to be suffering any ill effects. So please don't listen to Stephen Gundry. Please don't listen to anyone who tells you that fruit is bad. And if you're ever worried about fructose, I hope that's given you a bit of an overview. I was trying to keep things mega simple. So just remember that fructose in the presence of fruit is a very different thing from fructose by itself. But even fructose by itself in smaller quantities shouldn't be an issue. Only in dramatically high quantities and with a dramatically high calorie diet do we see issues like production of body fat, storage of body fat, and affecting of cholesterol. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Next Step Espresso. If you did, I'd love to have your feedback either by sending us a message on Instagram or reviewing the show. If you are interested in a free video series from Next Step Nutrition, including your biggest dieting problems, then do go over to the link in the show, page.nextstep-nutrition.com/diet toolkit, and you can get access to 4 free videos helping you overcome your biggest dieting problems. But for now, have a great Monday, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another daily shot of fitness.